Welcome to Stillworks and Brewing. My name is Randy, and this is the channel that's all about home distillation and brewing. What do we got going on today? Well, today we're going to talk about grain, and we're only going to touch on it very lightly, to the basics, very basics of the grain. Okay, but first things first. Hey, if you could please hit that subscribe button down there, hit that notification bell, share us with your friends, give us that thumbs up if you like what you see, and please leave a comment. Okay, I felt that the best way to answer this question, because I've been getting questions about 6-row and 2-row barley, what they are and all that stuff. So I thought this was a good opportunity to try to answer that question and others. So I come up with 7 questions that I thought would maybe just give you just a little bit of understanding, about the grains and what they're all about. Okay, so our very first question is, what grains do we use for brewing? Okay, so brewing and distillation. To make any spirit, you got to brew first. Okay, a little bit different process, but it's basically the same. Okay, so the grains that we use is barley, wheat, rice, corn, oats, and rye. And there is others, but that's the main ones. Okay, so that is question number 1. Okay, question number 2. What are the grains for? Well, that's a pretty, that can be a difficult question, but it's simple. The simple answer is, well, of course, flavor. We love the flavor of grains, the corn, all that stuff. Now, the next part of that question is, we need the enzymes that's in that grain to convert starch over into sugar. Because sugar is actually the main thing we're at. We can't make alcohol without sugar. Okay, in some form, we need some form of sugar. So that's what we're using the grains for. Like, I got corn here. I could put that in a pot the way it is right now. I could boil the heck out of it. I could do anything. But without enzymes, it will not convert that starch over into sugars. So that's just a very, very simple answer to that question, okay? Okay, so the next question that goes along with this is, and it's hand in hand, is what is malting? Okay, so if we have, our grain, and it don't matter which one it is, but we'll get back to that in a minute. But if you have grain, we need them enzymes that are in that grain. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we do that through the malting process. The very short answer of the malting process is, they will take that grain, they're going to soak it in water and get it wet and let it absorb water, and then they're going to keep it warm, and then they're going to get it wet, keep it warm, and then the seed will actually start to sprout. And as soon as the seed starts to sprout, it will start releasing the enzymes that's built into that seed. And what they'll do then is they'll dry that seed out and stop the growing process, but once the enzyme's produced, it's there. Okay. Now, one quick note is, the darker the color of the malt, the less enzyme, because like that malt there will have 0 enzymes in it, because through the drying process and toasting to get it to malt flavor or that color, it will kill off the enzymes. Okay, so that is malting in a nutshell. You could spend a whole video, probably plus some, on the malting process, and that I wouldn't mind trying to malt some of my own one of these days. I think it'd be very interesting. Okay. Okay, so the next question is, we're going to lead into, is what is diastetic power? Okay, diastetic power is how much enzymes are in that malt. Okay, so most malt, the seeds, will take right around 30 to 35 Lintner, if I said that right, to convert itself. And anything over that, it will lend it out to whatever else is in the or in the mash tun to help convert those starches over into sugar. So that's why this is very, very, very needed. So we'll get back into that in just a minute with the next question, okay? So I brought my notes over so I don't mess this up. Okay, question number 5. Base malts, what are they? Okay, base malts are like your 2-row and your 6-row barley. It's a very light barley with a high Lintner into it. And this was what spurred this. Is the question is, what is 2-row and 6-row barley? Okay, so right here is 2-row barley. It looks just like any. Way the 2-row barley grows in the seed pod. It's going to have 2 rows. Why they call it 2-row? Up the seed, up the pod, and then that's your seeds. Now, can you make whiskey just out of 2-row? Oh, sure you can. I've done it many a time. 2-row has a fuller and a maltier flavor, so it's great for beer, whiskey, or whatever. A lot of people say that you lose all your flavor in the distillation process. I don't see it that way. I think what your mash tastes like, it influences what comes out of distilled. I mean, that's why you make like a wheated bourbon, because you get that flavor and some characteristics from the malt and the grains that you use. Okay, so 2-row has around 140 Lintner in it. So if it only needs 30 to 35 to convert itself, whatever else that you have in the mash, it's going to lend all that extra to the corn, or to the unmalted rye, or unmalted whatever. It will help it out to convert all the starches in that over into sugars. All right. Now, basically, 2-row has points per gallon. Okay. So that is gravity points per gallon. Okay, so it's basically got 30 to 31 points per gallon if you were just using that. Okay, so the next, 6-row barley. 6-row barley is very similar to the 2-row, but when it grows on its seed pod, it has 6 rows of seeds. All right, it produces like a grainier flavor. It has more diastetic power than, let's say, the 2-row. It's basically is 160 Lintner. So if it takes around 30-35 Lintner to convert itself, it has a lot of left over to convert whatever else it's with. So, like, so say we're making a bourbon, which a bourbon is at least 51% corn, and the corn has it really can't convert itself. Even if it's malted, what I've read so far, it struggles to convert itself. So if you were doing a bourbon, I like to use 6-row because it has the extra stuff in it to help convert that over. All right, that's great. And with 6-row, you're looking right around 30 ppg, points per gallon. Okay. All right. So what do we got next? The next question is number 6, and I'm gonna call this adjuncts. Maybe, depends. In some recipes, corn is considered an adjunct but in bourbon it's not, okay? Just like rye, if you were making a rye whiskey, it needs to be 51% rye. So to me, then that's not an adjunct. But in a lot of recipes, corn is just an, and I don't know why they call it adjunct. It's like when you're making soup, you add this, and this to come out with the end flavor. That's the way I see it. Okay, so corn adds a sweetness and a smoothness to beer, which is very good. And you also will get that corny taste in bourbons and stuff like that. So I mean, that's one of the reasons I love bourbon so much. So, corn, the best I could find, that corn has on a PPG level, it has about 30 points. And Littner is less than 0, okay? But corn is very needed. I use a lot of it. Okay, so next question. Which one's next? Oh, there it is. Wheat. I use a lot of white wheat. White wheat is, let's see, it adds a smoothness to products, I think. It really adds a nice smoothness to it. I love it in beer. I love it in whiskeys and bourbons, okay? So, what does white wheat have? Well, white wheat, parts per gallon, points per gallon, I'm sorry, is 40. Now, Littner was pretty good on malted wheat. You're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of 140. That's pretty decent. And it gives that taste of like I said before, smoothness, but it also has a doughy or a bread taste, which is very, very, very pleasant. So I use a lot of white wheat, okay? Now, let's talk about rye. Rye to me, it's a spice. It gives you that peppery taste in anything you put it in. Oh, I love it. Especially in bourbons and whiskeys, it will give you that peppery taste. That's the only way I can describe it. Parts per gallon, points per gallon, 38. Very respectable. And Littner is about 105, so it will, if it's malted, it will lend itself out, okay? And the last I got on my list is rice. Rice is a little bit strange. Now, one thing, it really makes stuff taste light. A clean taste is what I think rice does. It's used in a lot of different things. One thing that I've been trying to read about and check about is sake. I tasted it over last week, and it impressed me. I never had it before. So we might be seeing a video coming out on that one these days soon. Alright? So that is the long and the short about rice. I mean, grain comes in all different colors. I mean, there is so many out there that, the home brewing beer side, they go whole wild with grain. They make a lot of different things, a lot of good beers, and they're using all kinds of different grains to get different tastes and different colors, which that don't really apply to the distilling, but it does apply to the brewing world. Okay, so next question. This is the last question. How do we convert those starches over into sugars? Which, of course, that is what we're after, right? Like we talked before, the malting process will get the enzymes out, right? And then what we need to do is convert them enzymes, or those starches using the enzymes over into fermentable sugars. All right, so what we're going to do is, in most everything, you take your base malts and you keep them at a certain temperature, somewhere between 148 and 168. You keep them in between that temperature for an hour, hour and a half, and it will convert those starches over into fermentable sugars. All right, so that's pretty easy. Now, using corn, unmalted corn, it's a little bit different. So if I was making let's say a bourbon, what I would do first is, of course, you have milled corn. I wouldn't use corn, whole kernel like this. You take your milled corn, you put into a mash tun, and I'll put 200-degree water in there. And what it will do is it'll try to get those starches out of that corn and get them released out. Okay. So then you're going to do that for like an hour and a half. Then after that, you let it cool down to the 148 to 168 range. And 168 to me is just a little bit on the high side. Don't leave you much cushion. Because if you have your water too hot, you're going to kill the enzymes, right? So, I like to go more in the middle of that scale. So anyway, let's get back. So you let that corn drop down to them temperatures, and then you stir in your 2-row or your 6-row. I would use 6-row because it has more Littner to it. You add that into your corn, and it will lend its enzymes to the corn to convert them starches over into sugar. And you got what you want, right? That's about it. I mean, like I said, this was just a very simple touch on grains. You could get into this subject, I mean, real, you could get neck deep. I just wanted to touch on it to get you thinking. It is a fascinating way this science works. And it's like I said before, there's just some important things you need to know, like the temperature for converting. Don't forget that 148 to 168. It'll work for you every time. Don't sweat it. This hobby is so much fun and there's so much learning. It does have a steep learning curve, but it's a fun hobby, and you end up with a good product. It's very rare that I come out with a product that I just don't like. There is some better than others, but we learn from our mistakes, and we just keep going on. So it's a great hobby. All right, that's about it. So with that being said, hey, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time here on Stillworks and Brewing. Cheers, everybody.